This video segment involves managing diversification using the General Electric 9-cell matrix, and we're going to use some examples of this taken from the portfolio of offerings from the Coca-Cola Company to help illustrate how this matrix might be used. There are a number of products in the Coca-Cola product family that you may or may not be aware. For a long time, Coke's root beer has been that of Barq's. Coke also offers a iced coffee drink. Although they don't make it, they actually have an agreement with Caribou Coffee to sell their line of coffee drinks. Full Throttle is their mainstay entry into the energy drink market. Glaceau Vitamin Water has been around for a few years. They've owned High C products, Minute Maid juice products, and Nestea for quite some time. And in the last few years, they acquired a company called Odwalla, which makes smoothies, the more healthy type of offering. Now, these products can fall into any category according to the 9-cell matrix. As a backdrop on here, I'm going to show how the construction of this matrix takes place. You'll recall this from your reading as well. On the x-axis, we try to assess competitive strength of a business line or a business unit. And it could range from strong to weak, and it is dependent on a number of criteria, several of which might be subjectively determined. And then on the y-axis, the strategist looks at long-term industry attractiveness, which is also determined by a number of criteria, many of which are kind of subjective. So we try to determine whether or not the long-term industry attractiveness is high, medium, or low. And similarly, the competitive strength, we try to assess whether or not we are, or our product is, or our product line is, in a strong, average, or weak positioning. Now, as a backdrop behind this, and I'm not saying right now these products fall into any of these categories, the first three categories that I show in the blue cells here are that if a product is found to be in at least an average competitive strength position, or in a high to at least medium long-term industry attractiveness, that's kind of like saying the product is a star according to the Boston Consulting Group matrix that we looked at earlier. But in the context of the current matrix, these types of products that fall into these really good categories are prescribed grow and build strategies, and there's a subset of them that you've already seen, and we'll talk about in the next slide. Products that fall kind of more on the cusp of being a star are products like question marks in the context of the BCG group matrix. These products might be in a great industry, but they're weak in competitive strength. Conversely, they might have tremendous competitive strength, but might be an industry that has very low long-term attractiveness. So these are products that are kind of on the bubble. We're not really sure what to do with them. They have some promise, but we prescribe selective investment strategies for these types of question marks. And then the products that fall in the quadrant or the cells that are in not such good a shape, they may be dogs in the BCG group matrix setting. In this setting, they're products with either low competitive strength or products that have medium strength but are in a pretty low industry attractiveness mode. And for those products, we prescribe the strategies of harvest, of which there are 3. You also recall from your module reading that for grow and build strategies, these are pretty aggressive. You know, market development, product development or market penetration, integration in any direction, partnering activities such as through alliances and joint ventures. These are all pretty aggressive modes, and they apply to products that are in pretty good positioning, such as grow and build strategies are. The marginal products, the question marks that we have in a product portfolio, we recommend either further product development or possibly related diversification to strengthen the standing of this product and move it into more of a star category. And then the harvest strategies for the products that aren't in such a good competitive or industry positioning, we prescribe either complete divestiture, retrenchment, which is cost cutting, or perhaps to effect a turnaround strategy for. So So there's three types of strategies, again, that fall under this GE 9-cell matrix. So let's take a look at Coke's product offerings and try to figure out where they might fit and see where Coke is going, or better stated, maybe where Coke has been, which would give us an idea of how this matrix could work. The first product we look at is traditional Coke. Coke is, or Coke Classic, is Coke's core brand, and it brings with it its core recognition. Where would you put Coke in this matrix? Well, if you think about it for a moment, and if we look at competitive strength, Coke is certainly not a weak player. In fact, Coke and Pepsi define their market. So at a minimum, they're strong to average players since they dominate that cola industry, traditional cola. So we could put them somewhere between strong and average, I suppose, and you could argue either way on that one, but it doesn't matter. It puts it up there in competitive strength. But what about industry attractiveness? And I suppose for the current conversation, let's just limit Coke to the United States. Now, what you probably know from prior conversations in this course is that cola is not a high growth industry. However, there's a great deal of cola consumption in the United States. And so we could say that, it might be medium long-term attractiveness. It's not growing, but there is a lot of volume there in the cola consumption. It's certainly not a low attractive industry at all. So what we might say then that Coke falls into a grow and build strategy, regardless of your exact placement of this product, and it could be in a number of places. It's probably going to fall in one of these three cells, depending on the individual doing the analysis. And this is, again, conjecture on my part, but I think it fits into the correct form of strategies, which would be grow and build. Now, grow and build strategies are pretty aggressive strategies, and two of these recommendations are product development and or market development or penetration. And where Coke is going, I'm not exactly sure, but from where Coke has been, I have quite a bit of insight into that. Coke has undergone product development by offering different flavors of Coca-Cola. And here's a few. Actually, here's three. Coke Black has also come out in the last few years. It's been a success in certain parts of the U.S., not a success in other parts of the U.S., and clearly this is product development. Coke has also really intensified its global efforts, and I put this little cut and paste up. I'm not sure how much of it you can see, but there is a cola war, so to speak, going on over in Iran, where Coke and Pepsi are fighting it out for market share, and they're not even the market leaders. It happens to be a local Iranian-based cola product, but with all the sanctions we have against Iran at present, Coke and Pepsi are still there fighting for market share. So, and if they're in Iran, the other 180 countries in the world would also seemingly be of great interest to Coke, and indeed most of them are. So this is market development. These are two types of strategies that Coke is undergoing. When you take a look at Coke's water, of course, that's the Dasani brand. Where would you put Dasani? Well, if you think about it, and again, let's start with competitive strength, there's a lot of bottled water out there. But I think that the mainstay waters, in terms of visibility through your convenience store or through your vending machine, which is closest to your office or wherever you're sitting right now, it's probably going to have Dasani, which is a Coke water, or an Aquafina water, which is a Pepsi water. These two companies are very large. These are their water offerings. There's a lot of water out there. Through Walmart and grocery stores, you can buy generic bottled waters, which are very inexpensive, of course. And there's a lot of competition here. But the branding of Dasani is, comes to the fore, and I would say that it's not a weak product in terms of competitive strength. I'm not sure I'd call it a strong product in terms of competitive strength, but it's at a minimum, I would argue that it's average. Long-term industry attractiveness of bottled water. Well, bottled water, like energy drinks, like coffee drinks, like sports drinks, are the high growth segments of the beverage business. So that would put us, probably medium to high in terms of long-term industry attractiveness as of this speaking, and probably for the foreseeable future. So regardless of your thoughts on the prior argument, I think you'd probably agree that Coke's water, which is Dasani, falls again like Coke up in the grow and build types of strategies. It's a star product. It's high growth, good strategic positioning. What is Coke going to do, or maybe for the present context, what has Coke done in the past? And probably what Coke has done in the past with traditional Dasani water is, first and foremost, it's diversified or product developed into a number of different flavors. Okay. Currently, there's even an extension that goes all the way out to the Dasani Plus, which is electrolytes and other nutrients in a water which is also flavored. This one happens to be orange. In addition, the Glacio fruit water is a product development line extension of Dasani water as well. So Coke's water is heavily undergoing product development. And then I show this slide as well because I couldn't fit the information on the prior slide. Strategic alliances is another type of growth strategy prescribed for products such as this. And one of the things Coke has done in the recent past, actually in 2009, it signed a strategic alliance. I'm not sure how much of this news release you can see on your screen, probably most of it, but Coca-Cola signed a exclusive partnership with Exercise TV. This is one of the many newer types of channels which you'll see on Comcast and or DirecTV that are very specifically focused towards a certain type of individual. There's Fit TV, there's GA-TV, there's other TV channels that just promote health and fitness. And so there's a multi-year agreement here between Coke and Exercise TV that features content and really promotes the brand of Dasani water as being the water of choice. Pretty good outlet for this type of product. We'll look at another one of product offerings of Coca-Cola, and that's of Powerade. Powerade, I do believe we've spoken in a previous module of having about 25% market share in the sports drink market. Now, that's not bad. It competes in the Gatorade market, and by virtue of saying it competes in the Gatorade market, that certainly says Powerade's not strong. 25% is not small potatoes either. So, the argument we could be on, is it a weak competitor? Is it an average competitor? I don't really know the answer to that question, but I would say it's somewhere between a weak and average competitor in that market at present. What about long-term industry attractiveness? I've alluded to in previous conversations and discussions that the sports drinks are really in a high growth phase, one of the higher growth segments in the beverage business. So it would put it fairly in fairly high long-term industry attractiveness. So where we place this is exactly Powerade, that is, in this matrix, is probably on these bubble items, or these items that make it kind of a question mark. It's up there in terms of long-term attractiveness. It's somewhere between average and weak, I'm saying, in terms of competitive strength. And for products like this, we only offer two types of strategies as recommendations, and that's product development, further product development to move it into a better competitive positioning because the industry certainly is attractive, or perhaps pursue related diversification, which is in essence very similar to that of product development. They're similar types of activities. Where's Powerade going? Again, I'm not sure. I know where they've been. They've really diversified into a number of flavors. I don't know if you can see at the top of your screen all the flavors of Powerade that they've gone into. If you walk into a Sheetz or a similar type of convenience store, even a grocery store, you'll see a number of offerings for Powerade, and they're quite mind-boggling. Powerade has undergone product development or related diversification. I'm not sure which you'd call it. It would probably qualify for both. They've gone into Powerade Zero, and a Powerade product or Powerade formula product that is similar to Gatorade's Prime offering, where it's looking at the elite athlete or athletes who want to be elite athletes by offering a product that's infused with more B vitamins, more carbohydrates, more electrolytes. It's targeted at the athlete who is either in a higher end type of activity or feels that they're in a higher end type of activity. product diversification or related diversification. Related diversification would probably more apply to what Powerade has done several years ago, and they've gone actually diversified into bottled waters. That's simply what option is. It's a very low-calorie, lightly flavored water. It's not a sports drink per se, which makes it a diversification away from water. So it's not product development, but certainly it's related diversification. So these are some of the activities that Powerade has done, and they've been fairly successful in their endeavors to date. Now we take a look at the last product we're going to examine in the context of Coca-Cola, and that is Mr. Pibb. And it's not called Mr. Pibb anymore. In fact, I think in 2001 they changed the name. It's now Pibb Extra. And they changed the name, of course, to try to better position Pibb Extra, because Pibb Extra actually competes in a market that you could call the Dr. Pepper market. And if you call it the Dr. Pepper market, then clearly you would see that Mr. Pibb is not a strong player, because this market, and these are the only two drinks that are in this market to my knowledge, Mr. Pibb and Dr. Pepper. Mr. Pibb is a very weak player in comparison to Dr. Pepper. So I think on the competitive strength axis, we could see where, at best it's average, and more than likely it's weak, maybe it's somewhere between. Now, what you may or may not know is the long-term industry attractiveness of the Dr. Pepper market, and it's not a high-growth market. Like the cola business, it's not really going anywhere. It hasn't gone anywhere in some time. We've talked already about where the growth in the beverage industry is, and it's not in cola, and it's not in the Dr. Pepper market. So by virtue of my arguments therein, Mr. Pibb probably falls down here somewhere. You could call it a dog if you'd like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Coke wants to get rid of them, and we'll talk about that right now. For Pibb Extra, what to do? I don't know what Coke's going to do, or maybe we can guess what Coke is going to do based on what they've done in the past. Under harvest strategies, 3 different types of sub-strategies are offered. Divestiture, which would be selling off the entire product line to somebody else, like maybe Dr. Pepper if they'd want them. Retrench, which is of course to cut costs and try to milk it for every penny it's worth. And then the last strategy would be turnaround, which would be a very, very expensive endeavor and take a lot of effort, and it's possible. Coke has the resources to do that. So these are 3 plausible strategies, and Coke could undergo any of these. But let's examine what maybe they should do or have done. Well, they've had the opportunity to divest Coke for a long time. It's in the Dr. Pepper market. It's never fared all that well. Should they divest and sell Coke? Should Coke sell Pibb Extra? I can't answer that for sure, but if you think about it logically, Pibb Extra makes money for Coke. And how much money does Coke throw at advertising campaigns of Pibb Extra? The answer to that question is probably very little. So, and also, a lot of beverages are sold through restaurants. And if a customer were to walk into a restaurant and want a Dr. Pepper type of product, if the vendor of choice in the restaurant was Coke, they've got Mr. Pibb. Should they not have a contract with the restaurant, not have a contract with Coke, maybe instead it's with Pepsi, well, they don't have the Mr. Pibb option, and Coke would not have the option of having a Pibb Extra to round out its portfolio. What I'm trying to say in so many words is that Pibb Extra kind of rounds out Coke's portfolio, because yes, they do have a pepper offering, even though it's not Dr. Pepper. So divestment, they could have done it a long time ago. They haven't, so I'm saying they probably shouldn't if they're making money on them and it rounds out their portfolio. How about turnaround? Turnaround strategies, as you know, is an effort to take a product that's not in a real good way, put massive amounts of money into it to enhance the product image and really bolster it up. It would take millions of dollars to do so, and Coke has the money and the cash reserves to do so. And so the question becomes, should Coke do this? Well, they haven't done it to date. Thinking or trying to second guess Coke, should they? Well, Probably not, would be my guess. Why? Because look at the industry that it's in. It's in the Dr. Pepper industry. That's kind of how we've defined it. How could Coke make that industry more attractive? Well, there are some ways it probably could, but if it made the industry more attractive, and it's primarily making the Dr. Pepper industry more attractive, and so Mr. Pibb would still be probably, or Pibb Extra would still probably be a fairly weak player there. So my guess is Coke's not going to do that either. So the third possibility is that of retrenchment. Retrenchment, as you know, means cost cutting, streamlining operations in every way possible, trying to milk whatever cash reserves you can off that product to fund other products or other initiatives. And if you think about it, when's the last time you saw a major Pibb Extra marketing campaign or other promotional campaign through one of the retail stores? I don't know about you, but I don't think I've seen very much activity in that area at all over the last 10 years. And so therefore, my feeling is that Coke is using Pibb Extra in a retrenchment mode. They're cutting costs, which means they're not spending money on it. They're making money on it, and they're using that money in other areas of Coca-Cola's business portfolio.